there, welcome to iTWireTV. Today we're joined again by Tony Maguire from D2L. And Tony, nice to see you again. You've been a terrific contributor to iTWire.
You too, David. It's always a pleasure.
Excellent. So Tony today is going to be talking to us about the financial and the productivity benefits of simplifying tech stacks for corporate learning applications. So I guess, Tony, before we start with that, I guess for those who don't know you, can you give us a reminder of D2L, what you do, the industries you work in, and things like that?
Sure. D2L is an educational technology products and services company. We operate out of Canada, so Canadian company, headquartered here in Melbourne. We've been around for about 20 years here in Australia. And on any given day, somewhere up around 700,000 learners in corporate spaces, government, big and large associations, universities, TAFEs, and schools use our platform Brightspace to basically achieve whatever the learning goals they have. In the TAFE space, it's around micro-credentials, it's for training for skill sets, undergraduate programs, postgraduate programs in university, mapping K-12 activities against national standards. And in the association space, a lot of associations are trying to find ways to build revenue streams. So they use Brightspace to help monetize the learning, but also just to better understand their members and have a better experience.
Okay, fantastic. And so when we talk about tech stacks, what do we mean by that term, and how is a tech stack used?
Yeah, a tech stack is essentially a sum of tool sets, it's programming languages, technologies like data storage that enable us to build products and services or solutions. And they can be websites or mobile apps, could be a whole variety of things. Think about a stack kind of like a coin. It's got two faces. There's a front end or a client side, and there's a back end or a server side, if you like. A stack's job is first and foremost about the user experience. So it's about improving security, bringing efficiency, increasing productivity for the business, and basically overall enhancing the business performance. If you think about a really good dining experience, that's not a bad analogy. So a brilliant restaurant experience has great floor staff out front, and they work really closely with the back end. That's the kitchen staff, the chef. So when those two come together, you get a really good experience. But restaurants today have to be about more than that. It's about the consistency of the overall experience. So from finding them, looking at the menu and researching before you get there, the booking experience, the physical experience when you arrive, how the food comes out, was the order right, the final transaction when you pay for it, and if it's a really good experience, you might even tip. So I guess finally, in my mind, stack implies a sense of siloing. I think it's actually better for us to think about an ecosystem, because that really considers business assumptions and all the interdependent technical elements, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, and how they operate in that evolving environment that businesses find them in today. So yeah.
That's great. You know, I like the coin analogy, but then the dining analogy, that was awesome. And I like.
Oh, I used to have a restaurant years ago. That's a whole other story.
Yes. So I guess then, why can a tech stack be complicated then? I mean, you know, it's simplest, that makes sense. Two sides of a coin. You've got great chefs, or you've got great customer service people. Where does the complexity come in?
There are lots of reasons for this, and I've actually just coming into this chat today is really good timing, because I've just spent a lot of time with CIOs and a number of large associations, sort of our larger corporate clients as well. And three things, whilst there's lots of elements to this, lots of faces to it, I think the three key elements that were recurring themes with these CIOs. The first is the simple passage of time. As our businesses evolve, our processes and our workflows that used to work need to be spring cleaned, need to be decluttered. The way the business operates has changed, and we need to change with that. I think the second thing that's related to time is team churn. We have a loss of institutional and business knowledge. New players come in, new resources, new team members arrive. They bring different perspectives. And they might bring some new learnings as well from things that they've used in other environments, other settings. They can all be a catalyst for change. The third thing, I think, from a time perspective, is around vendor mergers and acquisitions. If we think about the impact of those mergers and acquisitions on our business as usual activities, they can be profound. Recent acquisitions are of Badger and Credly by different vendors. That creates new opportunities for existing customers because they now have access to a broader range of services, but it also opens up spaces for new players to come in. The second main reason I see is around growth and strategy. There's been a real post-pandemic acceleration towards greater business agility. I think that's undeniable. That extends to things like business offerings, product offerings, service portfolios. And as businesses begin to think in terms of life cycles, whether they're product life cycles, customer or tech life cycles, and they're thinking more deeply around things like ideation through to delivery and then uptake and how to have long-term user relationships. I think the growing complexity of data requirements has really pushed things as well. Integrations with data, having more dynamic system connections so that there's event triggering that happens for a more dynamic and improved customer experience. And I think experience is king too. The more granular the data we have, the better we can understand and continuously iterate and improve the customer experience. The last bucket, if you like, that these CIOs are telling me is around emerging pressures that they're seeing. And there's lots that we could talk to there, but I think there's two in particular that have been top of mind for these CIOs. The first is their changing business models. Whether or not it's coming down from the board, a new CEO has come in. A good example here is associations. So a lot of associations are trying to move from subscription-based models to value-based models. They're trying to diversify their revenue streams. They're trying to grow revenue in new areas, and they're trying to really reinvigorate sometimes a fairly static member experience. The second of those two there, I think, is around capability creep. And that can be a good thing. Capability creep is understanding how your existing systems have grown in capability and functionality. Do they start to duplicate or do 80% of the job of some other tools that we've got that we can maybe do less with? If we go back and think about our workflows, do we need to do all the things that we did before? Maybe not. Maybe the capability creep in our existing core systems is sufficient to allow us to rethink the business workflows, get rid of some of those legacy or peripheral tools, and really focus down on what we just need to be successful.
Right. No, that's interesting. So that I can understand then how that does become complex. You've got companies, business processes changing, but with that complexity, I guess effectively you're saying there's value in that. But I guess how do we simplify that then? Do we remove the value and demerge, or I guess how do you simplify?
If I can go back to one conversation I had most recently with one of those CIOs, she made the comment that it had been quite a while since she had actually spoken to her vendors in a one-on-one situation. She tended to do things at arm's length. She was more focused on the strategy. We spoke in broad terms about things like capability creep, but what became really obvious to her was that there were some key understandings that they used to have and over time had lost focus on. So I think probably, I'm a bit of a Stephen Covey guy, so I'm just going to use Covey as a bit of a starting place here. So I think the first point is be proactive. That's one of his seven characteristics of successful people. So be proactive. Know your financial parameters for your business, because they're going to change. But also link to that the commercial terms and conditions you have with your existing vendors. If you understand your existing contract parameters and understand how that's changing against, or how your changing business conditions do or don't align with those, then you've got a reason to go back to your vendor and have a chat to them about any flexibility in the contracting frameworks. I'll give you an example. One of our CEOs recently contacted us, and the way that their business had changed in the last 4 years was fundamentally different from when we first signed a contract with them. Now, that's not to say that vendors will just change contracts willy-nilly, but what we were able to do was two things. First of all, we were able to consider the changes in their business and think about more effective ways to provide resources to them that would provide different range of services that better met the business's needs. They had lost team members. We were able to introduce technical account management that helped them fix a number of the problems that they had internally before, and when team left, they couldn't backfill those. So we were able to provide that within the existing contract. The second thing is, as we look towards renewals now, we're already talking to them 12 months out about what their business is going to look like, and we work with them transparently around what the contract should look like that gives them the best value. So will there be a different kind of model for the kinds of active user model as opposed to a monthly user model that might have been in place? Do we think about different weights of learning and how that impacts licensing? So we think about all of those sorts of things. So that's the proactive piece. The second point I'll make is begin with the end in mind. And I think this is an important one when you're starting to build products. Maybe you haven't built a lot of products, or you've built technical products, but you're moving into learning products, for instance. I can't stress enough the value of things like human-centered design. Bring in external stakeholders who can help you really understand the user, map their needs, design the experience, and ultimately that allows you to be more successful, faster to market, but more cost effective. Prior to today, prior to this session, I was thinking about any research that could kind of underpin that. Forster did a really, really interesting study, and they came up, there's always a rule, right? 80-20 rule, whatever. This is the 1-10-100 rule. So they estimate that for every $1 spent to fix a problem at the design stage, you spend $10 to fix it at the development stage, and you spend $100 to fix it post-implementation or at the product release phase. So really important that you don't discard or underestimate the value of that design piece up front. The last point I'll make there is around thinking win-win. Again, this came out of the conversation with the CIOs. They work with, so they want to work with partners who share their core value set around win-win. I spoke about the way in which we look to realign contracting terms. That's just one example. But yeah, that was very much the fall for those CIOs because they were wrestling with all of those challenges we talked about up front, David. So we help our clients with technical and functional analyses. Some of this is paid for service, but you know what? Quite often we go in and we will workshop with the CIOs or with the leadership team around some of those needs. We'll talk about capability creep. We'll help them better understand what their capabilities are now, because some of the team have gone, as to what they had before and what they can start to simplify in their tech stack. We do stack reviews with them. We introduce them to team members, maybe in North America, who are experts around API integration, data security, whatever. So we do a lot of those knowledge transfers. Some can be formal, some can be informal. And probably the most important thing that we've done over the last 6 months, 12 months, as we've started to get back to travel again, is around sharing best practice, introducing them to clients, like-minded clients with similar problems, who are maybe further down the track, have fixed some of the problems, have some lessons learned to share. So they would be three things that I'd think about, again, from a Covey perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. No, well, I'm sold on the benefits of simplifying tech stacks and why we
Yeah.
should do it. So, I mean, you spoke then about what D2L does. Like, yeah, how does D2L fit into this whole discussion of tech stacks? We talked about some of the services, but
Yeah, I think there are a number of things that we can kind of assist with. So essentially, our platform Brightspace supports all of those businesses I talked about at the beginning to be more open and simplified in their approach to data, their systems integration. They can natively, through Brightspace, address the widest accessibility needs of pretty much any of their users. And they can then uniquely meld any of that data and evidence to help each learner tell a narrative about their learning or their compliance pathway, their journey to this point. Having that unified narrative is really, really important. The most often missed piece of data, I think, is understanding learner journeys, user journeys. There's a lot of richness in the behavioral and transactional data that you can get out of learning. It's implicit in the learning, and it's not always drawn out easily. Those understandings are very much around end user aspiration, agency, perceived value, and it speaks to their internal and their external motivations, the things that drive them as people, and that's incredibly rich in terms of understanding users. The benefits, I think, are threefold. First of all, it's around sustainability and cost. Working with a partner like D2L allows you to really drive maximum value out of your vendor partner relationships. Your time to benefit can be faster. We talked about capability creep before. When you can author within a platform like Brightspace to the same standard that a small group of users might use Articulate for, is a game changer. It means anyone can build content or build products without code or no code kind of capabilities. It frees up and democratizes that product creation cycle we talked about. I think the next thing is around utility. Utility of platforms. So assessing and automating everything you do enables you to do more with less. It also helps partners, that automation piece and the use of things like intelligent agents in Brightspace allows our partners to solve personalization at scale problems. What does that mean? Our partners, our customers, are really focused on close relationships with their learners, their employees, whatever that means. So a level of close engagement and personalization is absolutely critical. Problem is, how do you do that at scale? To make those interactions authentic, to be able to change learning pathways through the use of data, improve communications, make that more personal, more in the moment. So it seems as if the learner is having responsive feedback in the moment to their activities. So things like intelligent agents help with that. I think the last thing that's really important too is when you match all of that together and you put it all together in the pan, the chef serves it up, you get a bowl of authentic engagement. You've got optimized communications. You're leveraging all of your systems, whether it's old learning, it may be face-to-face learning, it could be hybrid sessions, webinars. You've got new content. You can leverage all of those capabilities and bring it together in a structure that continues to evolve as your business evolves. I talked about business agility before. Sometimes it's about reusing, repurposing, and finding innovative ways to use existing content as a spice for new learning activities. So that's kind of thoughts, I guess.
yeah, that's wonderful. No, that's been an excellent discussion. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, it helps understand what D2L is doing, but also, what a tech stack is, why it matters to business, how it becomes complicated, how you can simplify it, and the services D2L offers. That's been brilliant. No, I appreciate that, Tony.
Yeah. Well, we're actually sending a couple of our CEOs across to our Fusion event which is happening in Anaheim this year, close to the Big Mouse, I think. So they're going over there and they'll be meeting with folks from the roadmap team, Data, the owner of the company, John Baker. But they'll be meeting, what's top of mind for them really is understanding what the product roadmap looks like and how that's going to assist them in simplifying their tech stack.
Yes.
Because we did a lot of work with them around integration with a whole variety of really complex authentication settings for their members coming in through various systems. That was a huge one. But come the back end of this year in September, we're also going to have 2 events here in Australia where we bring external folks and our partners together. And we talk, and there'll be introductions to all of those different kinds of businesses we talked about. But it's also around best practice in member engagement with associations, best practice, supporting remote at-risk learners, whole variety of themes that will come out. So I'd encourage anybody who has an interest in that to go and have a look at the events that we do. We've got webinars coming up later this week, actually, around Queensland TAFE, TAFE Directors Australia, specifically around working with marginalised learners in regional centres. Some fascinating research that'll be brought forward there. So I just encourage people to look for research, do your research, find good practice information and see where it can help you declutter your tech stacks.
Yeah, fantastic. Just on those events, where would people go to look for those, find out information?
That's an excellent question. I wish I had the website right in front of me, but I hadn't even thought about that coming into this. If you go to the D2L.com website, there's a link there to APAC.
Yes. And
there's a link then to the event, and you'll see them pop right up. But yeah, we do a lot of work with TAFE directors in the association space. There's webinars coming up with one of our key partners, Causes, who work in the IMS space, member engagement space. They do some great work there. We'll be working with them at their upcoming conference as well around simplifying tech stacks. So lots of information there.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. No, thank you, Tony. I appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, David. I do enjoy these chats, so take care.
Take care.